I'm Murray Campbell, representing the Intelligence Services SIG, and I guess the first question that naturally comes up is, what do we mean by intelligence services? So let me try and make that clear. The idea is that an intelligence service is one that uses data and analytics to improve its performance, either its efficiency or overall effectiveness of the service, through the analysis of that data, and using that to make better decisions within the service. So if you think of the service's life cycle as planning, implementing, and then actually operating and measuring, which leads to more information to replan. Within that, there's data being collected either internally within the service, generated by the service, or coming from external sources, be they social media or sensor data or whatever is relevant, leading into the analytics, which provide insight that allow the human actors, the decision makers, to make improved decisions. And as a side effect of this, it creates assets that are useful outside the service, data as a service or analytics as a service. And we'll talk more about that. So after much debate among the team, we settled down on 5 key focus areas to begin with, and of course we're happy to discuss alternatives as well. And they're pretty natural choices for the focus areas. One is around data. There's a complex process needed to gather the data and manage it, make sure it's relevant for the services system that we're looking at. And the second step is, the second focus area is around analytics, generating the insight that is needed to improve the services. The third focus area is around the human actors in the system. How do we make it easier for them to use the insights generated by analytics and to actually deploy the analytics themselves? And then thinking of the system as a whole, the entire ecosystem of information providing, data providing information for analytics that provides new information that can perhaps support other analytics and other services. And finally, we talked about the fact that there's a lot of differences across industries about these data analytics enabled services, and what are the commonalities, what are the differences across industries, and what does that say about the platforms that we might want to use to implement these. So I'll just quickly give a high-level view of each of these 5 focus areas to give you some ideas of what we think the key research topics are in each of these areas. So in the data part of the services life cycle, obviously we need the tools to identify, retrieve, and manage the relevant data. But services tend to have slightly different data characteristics than many other types of systems, perhaps transactional systems or others like that. So it will require special thinking about what kinds of tools are most appropriate for enabling intelligence services. And so that's the second point. The service data characteristics have special, they tend to be distributed, they tend to have privacy or security concerns, they can be largely unstructured, so there's many special challenges for data management here. And then data as a service itself. Can you get additional value from the data that you've collected to optimize your service in order to provide that to outside parties and get additional value? And we've got a lot of deeper thinking here. Clearly, it's a large process here. I won't, in interest of time, go into this in detail, but we'd be happy to talk to you about this. SRII over here is the lead on this focus area, and we'd be happy to talk to you. The analytics area, as we've gathered all this complex and figured out how to manage this complex type of data that are coming out of services systems, it presents special challenges for the analytics, dealing with unstructured data that has perhaps unknown quality guarantees on the data. How best to form the analytics to generate the insights from that is one research topic we think is worth spending some time on. And I've been talking so far as if the analytics provide the insights that the human actors inside the services system use to make better decisions, but it's possible to think about the system automatically improving itself over time by using self-learning. And finally, as we talked about data as a service, you can imagine analytics as a service, providing high-value insight on data, not just the data itself. Perhaps even if it's hard to aggregate and cleanse data, and that's a worthwhile thing, adding value on top of that through analytics, or even all the way through intelligence as a service. And we've got a lot of additional thinking on that as well, which we could talk about at great length. The human models and the processes that are involved in these systems. First of all, if you think about modeling a services system, we're used to managing models that deal with resources, to deal with the information, the knowledge in the system, but integrating those with behavioral models, because as we know, humans don't always behave in necessarily rational ways when presented with data, particularly if there's too much data to deal with. And so creating models at that level is important. The output of, another key issue is the fact that the output of analytics is often difficult to interpret for non-analysts. If you don't have a PhD in statistics, perhaps the many typical analytics tools are hard to understand. So the consumability of analytics is a key topic that we think going forward needs a lot of attention. And on the flip side of that, it's been proven difficult to deploy analytics for non-experts, partly because there's so many choices of analytics tools, and partly because even if you've made the choice, it's difficult to configure. So tools to improve the deployability of analytics within these kinds of systems. And again, more details. The ecosystem itself enables a lot of new business models, as we heard about in the cloud. As a service type models naturally come out of this, and it will allow new types of business models that sell data, sell analytics as a service, using this whole ecosystem to drive up. One service system can drive other service systems by providing the inputs to them. And developing a model of this whole ecosystem is a key topic as well. And then, of course, industry specific. We think it's important that we understand what the commonalities are across different industries, but also what the unique characteristics of each industry are, so that as we start thinking about what kinds of platforms can be suitable for intelligent services, we understand what kind of flexibility we need and where is the common core of such an intelligent services platform. So there are a number of additional topics that our panelists have been throwing around, and I think they all fit in very well with the topics that we're talking about. Data acquisition and data processing architectures fit in our data topic area. Converting into actionable insights is again a key part of the analytics. And the human models and processes topic. The ecosystem and standardization talks about how we think about cross-industry models. So in terms of deliverables, we spent a lot of time working out what we think the key research areas are, and I think each of those areas, white papers on what is the landscape out there that we see, and where are the key places where researchers can create impact and actually influence existing systems. I won't go into those in detail, but as we talk about these at the research forum, we can talk about them a lot more. And a couple of more ideas. One particularly is quite interesting, and that is, since data and analytics are so important to these kinds of services, we think it would be interesting to collect together some industrial data sets that we make available to both academic and industrial researchers, and perhaps define some sort of contest or challenge around these data sets that allow people to, often a lot of progress gets made when there's some competition at stake to drive. So the Netflix challenge is the best known example. We think there are similar challenges that are possible in the intelligence services area. Often a lot of progress gets made when there's some competition at stake to drive. So the Netflix challenge is the best known example. We think there are similar challenges that are possible in the intelligence services area, where industrial type data sets can be valuable. And finally, we think this is a great forum for bringing intelligence services together, researchers together, but we think there are other opportunities as well. Thank you.
Can you go back to the previous slide?
Yes.
Can you spend a moment one at a time, the deliverables
Sure.
you just talked about?
Okay, so these are the 5 topic areas you can see at the top level. In the data, I think we need to understand, given the special nature of data that's coming out of services systems, what are the gaps in the current state of the technology that we have, and the gaps in those technologies that prevent us from achieving the high quality data management that we need. Data as a service, I think, is a pretty hot topic, but I think there's a lot of interesting research areas on how best to enable data as a service, and how best to, how it works together with other data as a service vendors, how they all interact together. So, and analytics, we think that a self-learning system for an intelligence services system is certainly a difficult challenge, and we won't get there in one step. But I think understanding where we are with respect to that is a good topic for a white paper that will drive future research in this area. In the human models and processes, I think the consumability and deployability issues in intelligence services that we talked about, how best to take into account the skills gap between what typical, perhaps MBA types that are in charge of running an intelligence service, who may not have the analytics experience that some kinds of analysts or PhDs in machine learning or statistics have. What kinds of tools do we need to make it more accessible to those, the regular business users? The ecosystem, we need to understand what are the trends that are driving us towards this analytics ecosystem of services, and what kinds of business models become possible as these trends begin to unfold. And finally, I think we've talked about that already, the commonalities and differences between across industries, and how that influences our choice of a platform.